like a few questions in here. First one is that who prepared the assignment form, and also that's one. And do you guys prepare that, or our broker prepare that? And so
Yours truly.
yours
Yeah.
truly.
So
Okay.
for our transactions, right?
Okay.
You know, so it's, you know, I can't speak for the ins and outs of Samson, but if I am the one going out and meeting with the seller, whether it's my lead or a lead that an agent has brought to me, I'm using my paperwork that I've used for 1,500 transactions, my forms, my assignment, everything.
Excellent. Okay, second one is that, just so that I won't be wasting your time, when we encounter properties, and then of course we will do comps and everything, so at what percentage, because we can see already whether this is a good candidate or not, just so that not to waste your time, on what percentage do you think that this would be a good a property candidate for you guys to even look at it?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question too. So the economics of it are a little bit interesting, right? So everybody in this room knows how to do comps, right? Everybody knows how to figure out the ARV and you know, figuring out what you think you might list a property for. That's what we all do. Figuring out what we would be able to, like in our case, Four Brothers could assign a property for is something that's different, right? That's not going to be, that's more of a learned thing, kind of the way that you extrapolate from and figure out what to list a property for that is in slightly different condition than other houses that are already on the MLS, right? It takes some experience and so same thing. So that's something that we always would encourage if people to come to us. Hey, I'm not sure on the numbers. We can tell you what we think we would be able to offer. But rough rule of thumb, at the end of the day, these are properties that are going to be flipped in most cases, right? So sometimes they're buy and hold, but most of the time they're going to be flipped. So if you take 90% of the ARV, right? You figure out what the ARV is. You take 90% of that number. After renovation, sorry, yep. The sort of what is the renovated value of this property, and be, a reasonable renovated value, not like on your tippy toes, most aspirational number.
And what's that 10% for?
10%, take 10% out. That sort of covers for a flipper the transactional cost of buying it, reselling it, and holding it, right? So you take 90% of the renovated value minus the cost of construction. That's going to take more of a feel. And that will be kind of a break-even point for a flipper. So 90% of the renovated value less the cost of construction, whether it's 75, 100, 80, whatever, will get you a number that's, if somebody bought it and then bought it for that number and then flipped it for your renovated value, they'd make nothing, right? So that helps you get to where, right, that's their break even. Now, if we bake in, depending on the price point of the property, $30K profit, $50K, whatever, then you can kind of take it
I'd probably
from there.
think at least 10% return on investment to, where it would maybe start to make sense for people to.
So it's going to vary depending on the property and the type of property and what's going on. But, if you take 80% of the renovated value minus repairs, that'll generally get you in the ballpark of where a flipper would be interested, roughly.
Because not all people know about this kind of transactions. How would you guys address their concerns and questions when you go to the presentation?
Sure. So I have a presentation that I do, pretty much for every seller I've met with, where I kind of explain what our process is, how it works, what they should expect, what wholesaling is, really everything about it. My appointments are about an hour and a half, and I kind of walk them through everything in that. So, and that goes, I think, back to Mike's point of if you haven't done this before, you're not somebody that has been out and doing wholesaling, right? It may not be prudent to just sort of dive in, right, and start, hey, I got a cash offer for you. And so you want to make sure that it's explained well and everything is disclosed. But ultimately, I think, just like you do, you sort of figure out how to explain things to different personalities and effective ways to sort of communicate where you're telling them everything that they need to know, but it's packaged in a manner that is both informative, but sort of people understand and feel comfortable with you. So, I've done well over 1,000 wholesale transactions that I've closed, and so I have lots of experience explaining this, but I wouldn't, probably everybody in this room is a better real estate agent than I am. I don't know how to do that, right? Just because you're a good agent doesn't mean that you're going to be necessarily in a position to pivot and be like, and just put out this beautiful cash presentation. I see that all the time. I see agents trying to do that. I'll meet with somebody, I met with somebody from RE/MAX and they pitched me on a cash offer. We always win those deals, right? People are not, if that's not what you do every day, you're not going to be as good at it. Everybody here, as I said, is a better agent than me. I'm licensed, but I don't know I'm not an agent. I don't pitch that. I wouldn't try and pitch it. So, if it's something you really want to learn about, I think there'll probably be future sessions. Maybe we talk more about that in those. But, it is something that has taken a lot of time and trial and error over the years of figuring out exactly how we sort of do our presentation, most effectively.
I want to jump back to the question that was asked before about being how do you, does the seller think you're buying it, or are they clear on whether you're wholesaling it or not? So not only is it the right thing to do to be transparent about the process, but I actually think it will make you more effective at doing the deals if you are totally honest about what's going to happen. I'll give you an example of this. So we do a little bit of education. We have some students who we help build these types of businesses around the country. We have one such student in Richmond, and he got a lead on a property in Brambleton, so in Northern Virginia. And he drove up to conduct this appointment. And before we started working with him, he was always really uncomfortable about this question. Like, are you going to wholesale this property? Are you a wholesaler? Are you actually going to buy it? He struggled with it a lot. He tried to sort of circumvent it and sort of not be direct. Our instruction to everyone is to tell them that's exactly what you're going to do. And so we had just come off of a call with him where we explained this to him. A couple hours later, he had this appointment. And he told us after the appointment, he said he got this question. The guy said, so what's your deal? What are you going to do? Are you actually going to buy this? Or are you going to wholesale it? He said he looked him dead in the eye and said, almost definitely I'm going to wholesale this property. But what I can agree to you to do is just give me 7 days. So give me a 7-day contingency. At that point, I will know for sure whether I'm going to need to cancel this contract or whether I've found a buyer and we can proceed. And the guy was like, thank you for being upfront. I feel good about this. They signed the deal on the spot, which he also hadn't been that successful at doing many times in the past, sort of getting deals signed at an initial meeting. So we ended up helping him sell that deal. It was in Northern Virginia. We had a lot of buyers there. We ended up helping him move that contract. It got closed. But he was mind blown that this very uncomfortable question, what was an uncomfortable question to him, he answered transparently, no, I'm not going to buy it. I live in Richmond. This is in Brambleton. I'm almost definitely not going to buy this property. And my intention is going to be to find a buyer to assign it to make an assignment fee. And the guy was like, thank you. Thanks for actually being straight with me. And they went ahead and did it. And we had just got an email from him this week about another property down in Richmond where the exact same thing happened, same question, he answered it the same way, and he got the deal, and it's looking like a good one for him. So I think this is also just a way to action. Not only is it the right thing to do, the seller's gonna be more comfortable with you, everyone will be, but you'll even be more effective in the sales process.
Yes, this is more like a two-part question. And I noticed you said you have a buyer's list, so you just send it out to your buyer's list. I've noticed on the MLS there are wholesalers that list the property they're wholesaling on the MLS. I was just wondering if you guys ever list your properties, and also this might be more like a Samson question, does Samson allow agents to these properties that wholesalers have under contract?
I can't answer that question, but we don't ever put anything on the MLS. I mean, I think our buyers like that all of our stuff is off market. It's not available on the MLS. They come to us. They have a relationship with us. We've found that it sort of dilutes the value to some degree. People, a lot of buyers are not interested at that point.
And sellers too, I think, generally.
And a lot of sellers, then you have to tell them I'm putting it on the MLS. And they're so, well, why? I guess at that point I could just list it, right? So we never do that. As far as Samson, I would not be in a position to answer that question.
Right. So I'm not sure if you have in mind that you would be the wholesaler. So this is a property you've listed, and so you're already in the MLS, or not yet? Okay, not yet in the MLS, but you find a buyer, or you don't have a buyer yet. You want to market it in MLS for buyers.
For the wholesaler.
For the wholesaler. Yeah.
I would think you'd need seller consent at a minimum.
I mean, obviously, that's a listing agreement that says you're going to put it in the MLS. So it's like a regular listing agreement, right? So and that's fine. You're trying to find a buyer in the MLS.
So does the wholesaler have the ownership rights to sign the listing agreement? Or who signed the listing agreement, the wholesaler or the property owner?
I'm sorry, I guess what you're saying is your client would be the wholesaler?
Yes.
That's what you're saying. Legally, it's possible, and I do believe that Bright MLS allows a contract owner to then market it. We see that with rentals sometimes. An investor is under contract to buy a property, but he wants to put it back in the MLS to find a tenant prior to closing, right? Legally, it's fine, but you got to have written permission of the owner of record, of course, and definitely check in with me or one of the brokers here, Dave. But as they were saying, normally these wholesale deals are off market completely, and if you're operating as a wholesaler or you're working for a wholesaler, that wholesaler should have his own database of buyers, and if not, they're not much of a wholesaler.
That's not a path to success, trying to represent a sort of floundering wholesaler.
I mean, after this session or in the days to come, if anybody wants to talk to me about company policy and about errors and omissions insurance and when the E&O is in place and when it's not, and things like that, just reach out, because all of that is a factor, and we are, as we move forward, going to be more formalizing Samson Properties policy when it comes to any of our agents being the wholesaler, getting a property under contract, the extent to which we want those deals done under the company umbrella or not. All of that. There's a lot of additional risk, of course, whenever there's an agent involved, whether it's a straight-up investor buy, they're buying it to close on it, or these wholesales. So.